Most people are afraid of being ignored. They fear awkward pauses, empty spaces, and moments when no one is speaking. But what if the real power in a conversation isn't found in words at all? What if the most intimidating person in the room is often the one saying the least? In a world obsessed with constant communication, silence has become rare. And anything rare immediately attracts attention. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop defending every decision, and stop filling every empty second with noise, something interesting happens. People begin watching you more closely. They begin wondering what you're thinking. And sometimes, without realizing it, they begin feeling intimidated by you. Human beings are prediction machines. Our brains constantly scan other people, searching for clues about their intentions, emotions, and thoughts. We want certainty because certainty makes us feel safe. This is why conversations are often filled with small talk, unnecessary explanations, and endless sharing. Every word gives people information. Every sentence reveals something. The more someone talks, the easier they become to understand. But silence interrupts that process. Silence removes information. It creates uncertainty. And uncertainty has a strange psychological effect on people. It forces them to fill in the blanks themselves. Think about the most confident person you've ever met. Chances are they weren't desperately trying to convince everyone of their value. They weren't dominating every conversation or constantly seeking attention. Instead, they carried themselves with a calm presence. They spoke when necessary and remained silent when words weren't needed. That kind of silence sends a powerful message. It suggests emotional control. It suggests self-assurance. It suggests that this person doesn't feel pressured to prove anything. And in a world where so many people are desperately trying to be seen, someone who doesn't need validation immediately stands apart. Silence also creates mystery, and mystery has always held power over the human mind. We are naturally curious creatures. When we don't have enough information, our imagination takes over. This is why people often think more about someone who says little than someone who talks endlessly. The silent individual becomes difficult to categorize. Others cannot easily predict their reactions, beliefs, or intentions. And what cannot be predicted often feels powerful. Not because it is dangerous, but because it remains unknown. Social psychology offers another fascinating explanation. In many situations, people unconsciously associate restraint with status. Consider a negotiation, a disagreement, or even a casual group conversation. The person who feels anxious often rushes to explain themselves. They speak quickly, justify their actions, and fill every pause with additional words. Meanwhile, the person who remains comfortable in silence appears unaffected by pressure. Their calmness signals emotional stability. Their restraint suggests confidence. Without realizing it, observers begin assigning greater authority to the individual who seems least desperate to be understood. This is one reason silence can make people uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their own emotions. Most conversations act as distractions. Constant talking prevents people from sitting with uncertainty. But when someone remains silent, the dynamic changes. Suddenly there is space. Space for reflection, space for insecurity, space for self-awareness. And many people are not as comfortable with those things as they believe. The silent person becomes a mirror, reflecting emotions others would rather avoid. There is also a deeper layer connected to emotional intelligence. Highly emotionally intelligent individuals understand that not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every criticism requires a response. Not every misunderstanding demands correction. They recognize that words are valuable precisely because they are limited. The more carefully someone uses language, the more impact their words tend to carry. This creates an interesting paradox. The less a person speaks, the more attention people give when they finally do. Notice what happens during moments of conflict. One person becomes emotional, raising their voice and arguing passionately. The other remains calm and silent. Almost immediately, observers perceive the situation differently. The silent individual appears composed while the other appears reactive. Even when silence is not intentional, it often communicates emotional strength because it demonstrates an ability to tolerate discomfort without losing control. Of course, silence isn't always intimidating. There is a difference between confident silence and fearful silence. One comes from security, the other comes from avoidance. People can often sense the difference. Confident silence feels grounded. It feels deliberate. It feels like someone who has nothing to prove. Fearful silence, on the other hand, feels tense and uncertain. The power of silence doesn't come from simply refusing to speak. It comes from remaining comfortable when everyone else expects you to fill the void. Modern culture has made this even more significant. Social media rewards constant expression. Everyone is encouraged to share opinions, updates, reactions, and explanations. The pressure to be visible has never been stronger. Yet paradoxically, this makes silence even more powerful. When everyone is speaking, the person who chooses their words carefully becomes impossible to ignore. Their restraint stands out against the noise. Their absence of reaction becomes more noticeable than someone else's endless commentary. Perhaps this is why silence often unsettles people. It breaks the rules of modern communication. It refuses to participate in the endless exchange of approval and validation. It cannot be easily manipulated because it reveals very little. It creates psychological distance. And distance creates intrigue. People begin wondering what lies beneath the surface. They start projecting their own assumptions onto the silent individual. Sometimes they imagine confidence, sometimes intelligence, sometimes power. But whatever they imagine, they rarely remain indifferent. The truth is that silence has never been about controlling others. Its real power lies in controlling yourself. Anyone can react. Anyone can speak impulsively. Anyone can fill a room with noise. But remaining calm, thoughtful, and composed in moments when others feel compelled to talk requires a different kind of strength. It requires patience, awareness, discipline. It requires confidence that your value does not depend on constant explanation. And maybe that is what people find most intimidating of all. Deep down, many individuals spend their lives seeking reassurance from the outside world. They want approval, recognition, validation. When they encounter someone who appears comfortable without those things, it challenges their assumptions. It forces them to question why they themselves feel such a strong need to be heard. So the next time a silence appears in a conversation, resist the urge to rush and fill it. Pay attention to what happens. Notice how people react. Notice how quickly discomfort surfaces, because silence is far more than the absence of words. It is a psychological force, a display of emotional control, a signal of confidence. And in a world overflowing with noise, the person who masters silence often possesses the loudest presence of all.